Hello, everyone. This Spiritual Underground podcast is coming to you from the wood shop at DTM Enterprises. Today, we're going to try something new. First of many more episodes that we hope to have people tell their story, somewhat like recovery speaker tapes. Today, we have Chase here with me, and we're going to let him spend the next hour or so telling his story. And some of the recovery literature would say what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. So as we learn these stories, sometimes what the magic is that people will connect when they hear somebody tell their own story. Now that will allow them to make that identification that, hey, yeah, I am just like that guy. So we'll get started there. Once again, my name is Dan, and we'll get started. So Chase, let's start out with your sobriety date, and then you can go from there.
My name's Chase, and my sobriety date is July 17th, 2017.
All right.
So what it was like. Growing up for me was honestly pretty good. That's actually something that's kind of bothered me. When I came to realize that I was a real alcoholic, I'd always look for things that were wrong with my life. Growing up, especially, I had a lot of trouble picking things out because honestly, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff that was that bad. I had a pretty good life. My dad was a probation officer. My mom was a special ed teacher, and we were definitely not rich, but we definitely were not poor. We had, everything that we needed and a lot of things that we wanted. So growing up was great, and I didn't have alcoholic parents or family members either. For the most part, that I experienced, I did see my parents drinking a lot, and alcohol was definitely a big part of our lives. And I got to see my parents and my uncles, and seemed like a problem. So yeah, things were pretty good growing up, and I think about my sobriety date though. I heard in a meeting somebody said, I was sober for about 13 years, and then I turned 13. But that's kind of how I feel, having worked the steps. I think about that a lot because I think about how I was and how the ways in which I experienced life before I did the steps were painful in a lot of ways, and it didn't have anything to do with alcohol. It didn't have anything to do with drinking or doing drugs or anything like that. It was just the general uncomfortability that I had with everyday living. Most of them were social experiences that were extremely uncomfortable for me. I remember vividly the most, I have two vivid memories that were where I experienced a really intense anxiety, and I guess you could say I had a panic attack. And the first one was in kindergarten, and I had pulled a little girl's hair, and my kindergarten teacher, Miss Goffinette, pulled me out of the hallway, and I had to stand out in the hallway for pulling this girl Sarah's hair. I still remember her name, and I was just devastated because I hadn't really gotten in trouble, and I was really scared of being in trouble with my parents. I was really scared of my dad. My dad was pretty strict, and we were good kids, so I was devastated. I mean, I was scared to death that I was going to have to go home and tell my parents that I'd got in trouble, had to stand out in the hallway.
Had to face the music.
So I did what most alcoholics do. I didn't tell them. I lied about it.
Yeah.
And Miss Goffinette didn't tell my parents. So my parents didn't ask, and I didn't say anything. But I dealt with that for years after that. I would wake up in the middle of the night having like stomach aches because I felt like I'd done this horrible, wrong thing by getting in trouble. And I was like a first grader, second, and this might have even gone into second grade, but I remember the fact that that bothered me so much, and it would keep me up at night. And I would wake up and I would tell my mom that I was having a bad stomach ache after I'd snuck downstairs, and I would pace in the basement. I remember that in first grade, second grade, that was happening. Um, Finally, I couldn't handle it anymore, and I think I might have been a fourth or fifth grader, and I spilled the beans and told my parents what I did, and they looked at me like it was no big deal.
And of course, it wasn't any big deal.
Right. The second one was playing mini league basketball, and I hated playing basketball, but my parents, they really pushed us to be involved in sports, and I was good at sports. I probably would have been okay at basketball if I was.
You liked it.
If I liked it, and I might have been good if I was, taller. But I didn't want to play, and we were having a practice one day, and I just couldn't handle it, and I freaked out, and I told the coach that I had a stomach ache, and I went into the bathroom and cried. And the owner of the mini league is what it was called. I don't remember this guy's name. He comes in, and he was a real old guy, and he asked me, what was wrong and if I really wanted to play, and I didn't know what to do, and I just couldn't handle it. Like, I could not handle that.
And you couldn't. I would just say, guessing. I'm hearing something that beginnings of the troubles of being able to speak your truth. You couldn't tell people the truth about what was going on.
I couldn't tell them what I did, and I couldn't tell them. I was scared to death to tell them that I was just scared to play basketball, and I didn't really want to do that anymore, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And that made me feel really weird because I also, at the same time, saw all these other kids playing basketball having fun. And they were having fun. And I was terrified. It made me feel really weird and different. And then that kind of feeling carried on through junior high school and definitely into high school. But I figured out a way to deal with it. I took my first drink that I really remember. I mean, growing up, I sipped beers and stuff like that. But, I really, with the intention of getting drunk for the first time, I think I was 12 or 13 years old. And my parents were gone. And I knew where my dad kept the Maker's Mark whiskey. And I liked it. And that was the second time that I realized that I was really different. Because my other friends there were drinking with us. And they didn't like it at all. They got sick. And I loved it. And I got sick.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those things. Most people would, drink that much and get sick, and they say, "Well, I'm never doing this again." They might wait till 3 or 4 months, or maybe till they're 18. I just thought, man, I got to figure out how to do this better. I got to figure out how to make this work because I'm definitely not gonna not do it. This is it for me. The first time I had a drink, I thought this is. In the book it talks about how he's, like I have arrived.
Right.
Fuck, I took a drink and I thought I'm gonna get fucking rich off this shit. This is gonna be my ticket to never feeling that way again. I can do whatever the fuck I want now.
I thought it was a golden key.
Yeah, it is.
I found the secret.
And like all of a sudden I could talk to girls, I could make money, I could make friends. People liked me. I liked me. It was the best thing ever, and I was never going to put that down. I was never going to let that go. And it worked, for a long time. It really worked. But there were definitely times, even in high school, when it was just harder to tell. It was more difficult to distinguish my bad drinking patterns from everybody else's. Other than I drank every weekend for sure. I smoked pot every weekend for sure. Some of my friends maybe just kind of did it every once in a while. I had to go to a party every Friday, Saturday night. And a lot of them were drinking to excess and passing out in fields. And, it was just kind of like, well, we're high school kids. It's not a big deal. But, when I was 17, 18, it definitely started to carry over. And it wasn't just, drinking and passing out. It was getting in fights and, it'd spill into me, sneaking some drinks during the week. to fall asleep. And then just lying. Lying had become such a part of my everyday behavior that there wasn't a single day went by that I didn't, and I didn't even have to lie. I just did it because it's just part of the deal at that point.
Whether if you're covering something up or whether if you're exaggerating or you're trying to make yourself look better than you really feel you are, the
Well,
life becomes a big lie.
I'd lie so much that I'd start to lose track of. It's almost like you start to lose track of a real sense of reality.
You do. It is the beginnings of losing track of that.
Yep.
Not being able to tell the true from the false.
Mm-hmm. That definitely happened. And I suppose it was probably 20. See, the weird thing is, too, like I did well in a lot of stuff. I was good at sports. I played baseball, and I was pretty good. I wasn't, I wasn't going to go pro. I didn't want to. I had no intent. I didn't want to play baseball. The only reason I played baseball is because my parents had spent so much time and money pushing me, and I kind of felt like I had to. It wasn't really a choice. Nobody had ever asked me, "Do you really want to play?" Or maybe they did, but I didn't think that even saying no was an option.
Right.
I had to do that, and I had to be good at it, and I had to make decent grades, and I did.
I remember a period of time when making grades kept everybody off my rear end.
Exactly.
And
I
it was
could
just a way to skate a little easier. I figured, man, it was easier to make good grades and people stayed off of me than the opposite.
Yep. Nobody really gave too much of a shit if I was out partying all weekend if I had decent grades. And I was on the honor roll. I don't remember what I got when I graduated, but I got into I got an academic scholarship to go to Transylvania University if I played baseball there. I was dating a girl at the time, and that was terrifying to leave what I knew and do something like on my own. I couldn't. There's no way that I wouldn't have been able to do that. So I stayed at IUS. Actually, that's not true. I was in the engineering speed school at U of L for a semester, and again, the same type of anxiety hit me when I was in my first week there. I panicked. I freaked out. And I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I couldn't breathe. I remember sitting in the library at U of L, one of the libraries there, and I was just like, I can't do this. And I left. And I called my parents, and I was like, I don't, I lied. I told them it wasn't for me. I didn't want to do it. I think I'm going to go back to IUS. That's where my girlfriend was, too. And it was comfortable.
I thought you were going to tell me that you told him you had a bellyache again.
I definitely had a bellyache. But, yeah, definitely.
I thought that was going to become a pattern for a minute.
No. But I lied and just told him, that's what it was. At that point, still, I had no real idea what was really going on. But I just knew that if I, took a drink, it would go away. And my drinking patterns weren't such that I was doing it every day. But every time I did it, it was, very excessive, dangerous levels of alcohol. And I never had one. I've never in my life had one drink. I can honestly say that. I've never in my life had one drink. That's funny to think about, but it's the truth. I never had just one drink. That I'm even sitting here right now trying to remember a time, and I can't.
Yeah,
that's something.
I'm sure at times I was forced to only have one. I can almost guarantee at some point there were episodes in my life where I didn't have a choice. But I promise you that I never chose to have one.
I can tell you there were times when I was on a date or even with my wife when, I was still drinking around her, that she knew I had a drinking problem, and I knew I had a drinking problem at that point, but it was just like, I'm going to show her that I don't. We'll have one drink.
Yeah.
But then by the time I got home, I had to, the whole time.
Like maybe it was one drink at a time.
I could say that I only have one drink and I'll be okay with it, but I knew I had more at home. So I can wait and just show her that everything's good. Into a little bit, it was,
I could very well be lying to myself.
To some extent, it was just trying to prove that I wasn't really an alcoholic and this wasn't a serious problem. But still, nobody had ever talked to me about, um, the patterns of alcoholism. Really, I mean, growing up, you always hear about, I remember it was Dare when we were in school. Like,
That's still popular.
is it still popular?
I get stuff from my kids' school on Dare. Matter of fact,
Really?
this past week it's been a Dare week at school where they wear clothes and do things to stay off of drugs and alcohol. And
It'd be a crazy idea if they asked a real alcoholic to actually come and talk to them about that. That instead of officer friendly,
yeah,
come talk to you about don't smoke pot. It's a gateway drug. I don't know if it was. I don't know if marijuana was a gateway drug, but
I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but I have been invited to speak at a school tomorrow
Yeah.
evening. Yeah, to some apparently some high school students about this. So that school at least has asked one of us to come speak from our experience.
is that a coincidence that I brought that up? I don't know.
I don't know either.
But I never really knew what alcoholism looked. I thought I was just behaving like a healthy, active teenager, and my parents did too. Although they did have some concerns when I would come home, passed out, and wake up, or they'd come find me in the middle of the kitchen floor. But they thought I was just being rambunctious. I guess maybe they did have some concerns, but they never really voiced it to me. Nobody ever really talked to me about my drinking until I was about 25 or 6. So I screwed around in college at this point. After high school, I ended up at I left U of L. I'm at IUS, and
So just for a point of reference, you said until you was 25, 26. How old are you now?
I'm 34 now.
Okay.
Almost. Well, I'll be 35 in
All
April.
right. Yeah, just giving a frame to see if you're 50 or
Yeah.
if this is 10 years after 25 or 26 or 25 years after
It's
25
about
or
10 years
26.
after 25.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm probably 2021 at IUS, and I was working part time. I always had a job. Wouldn't really remember ever since I was about 16. I always did some sort of work because it was expensive to buy all that. Just it was hard to keep up with. I always had a job and never had any money, and I was screwing around in school. And let's see, I was engineering major at U of L. I went to IUS, and I think I was a math major for a little while. I took a bunch of math classes, and then I took some physics classes, and then and I thought, science is not for me. I'm going to do business, so I studied finance. I was a finance major, and I switched to economics, and then I thought, I want to do something more literary, so I switched to a more liberal arts, field, and so I started studying history for a little while, and then I got in. Well, that's more of a social science, but I got into philosophy. So I was finally a philosophy major, and this is like, college. I was at IUS for like 7 years, and
Getting nowhere.
not getting anywhere. And my little brother had actually graduated, and I was like, damn, I got to do something. So I had enough credits to graduate, like with a different degree. I had enough credits to graduate with an economics degree, so I could have got a business degree before I did. But I didn't even know that until actually last year, or no, it was 2016 when I actually graduated from college. True story. So I had told my parents, I'm done. Okay, I'm graduating. I finished. So I took a senior seminar to finish my degree. I had to write this paper. We were studying. We were studying Hannah Arendt, and it was, that's not important, but I was writing this paper, and I'd actually written it, and it was pretty good, but for whatever reason, I didn't turn it in. So I didn't get a degree. I didn't graduate, but the professor gave me an incomplete in the class, and that was in 2007 or 8, maybe, and it was still incomplete in 2016. So and I wasn't sober yet, but I got to go back and actually finish it.
Turn in your paper?
Turned in my paper.
I didn't know you could do that.
Apparently he can at the philosophy department at US. But that was my college experience, and it was wrought with drunken nights and debauches and shattered, attempts at a relationship with a couple girls who, if I ever saw, I'd be ashamed to, say that I spent any time at all together with them, and I'm sure they'd say the same about me. It was just mostly just drinking. I took tests high, drunk. I don't think I was sober for very much of my college career at all.
And a long one it was.
And it was lengthy. Yeah, I was on that 10-year plan. Stretch it out. I don't know.
Did your brother graduate in 4?
Did
your brother graduate in 4 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He's not an alcoholic.
Yeah. It's the damnedest thing. My brother actually graduated in 4 years. I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah. My brother's a pilot, and he's a good pilot, and he's doing well. Honestly, I was always a little bit jealous of my brother because he started training to be a pilot when he was in high school, and then he knew exactly what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
He just went for it.
Was on a trajectory.
I'd never had a fucking clue about what I wanted to do. How could I even know who I was? And I was just trying to feel okay. I spent most of my life so far trying to feel okay.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I mean. If I'm honest, and that's why I'm here to tackle the lie, and fight it with truth. If I'm truthful, I spent from that earliest memory of anxiety in kindergarten to 2017, July 17th, trying to feel okay. Because even after I got drunk for the first time, I never felt that way again. I never felt that kind of relief until after we did a fifth step, probably. I mean, that was the first time when I was like, holy shit, this is gonna work for me.
There really is something to this.
Yeah, I could do this. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the first time I felt a similar kind of euphoric relief that I felt I would liken it to that first drink.
Yeah.
Honestly, coming out of that, and we did it at your cabin, it didn't really hit me the next morning. Honestly, I had to get a full night's sleep.
Yeah.
In my bed before I thought about it. I was like, holy shit.
Well, let's circle back around to like those final days, and then that what happened portion that actually brought you to your knees to make you decide to forced you to make some changes. I don't know if I ever made a decision to make some changes. I got forced to myself.
Yeah, when I was about 24, 25, I just started blacking out a lot, and my parents had brought up, maybe you need to take a look at your drinking. Other people had mentioned it. Some girlfriends had brought it up. I'd ended up in the hospital quite a few times from accidents, fights. One bad one, I fell down and fractured my skull in 3 places. I was in the ICU for a while, and I lost the hearing in my right ear.
Yeah.
And the doctor came in and was like, well, has anybody ever talked to you about your drinking? Have you ever, thought maybe you have a problem? You ever took a look at that? I went to see a therapist, and from that point on, it got a whole hell of a lot worse. And that was, I don't remember when that was.
Yeah, I joke around and say if I knew I was going to be telling this story, I'd have kept better track.
Yeah, I wrote that down. I've written that down. Honestly, things got bad, but I managed to kind of pull my shit together a little bit. And because the last thing that I wanted to do was, I didn't really care so much about being an alcoholic. I was pretty certain by, 25, I was an alcoholic. It was obvious to me. And I didn't care so much about that. I was just scared to death that I was going to feel like I felt in kindergarten again. And I did not want to do that. And I wasn't going out like that. There was no way. So I faked it hard, man. And I remember one particular incident, and it was Harvest Homecoming in 2009. maybe.
Which is a big local festival here.
Yep, big local festival, big party,
Fall
big
festival.
fall party festival. Um, I woke up in a gutter for the first time.
Yeah.
Literally woke up in a gutter. No shirt on, um, bruises. I don't know if I'd been in a fight, but I woke up in a gutter behind a dumpster. That was kind of a kick in the nuts because I was like, "Damn, I might have to, I might have to put it down."
Yeah.
But I remember getting up, got in my car, went home, slept it off, and I went back the next night. Did it again, the exact same thing. And then I made it to Sunday. Sundays were horrible. Sundays were rough days with that depression of like the weeks coming.
Yeah.
You know. So I just said, fuck that. I'm not gonna do it. So I went out and found friends who drank on Sunday nights. Found some friends who drank on Monday nights, and when I say drank, we did other things. We drank, we smoked, we did pills. I did a lot of cocaine. Anything to feel better.
Right.
And
Change the way I feel, because the way I feel is not working for me.
so instead of changing, what I knew was really wrong, which was the fact that I'm a raging alcoholic, I just decided to change some other things. So I'm gonna change a job, or I'm gonna change you know what I need? I need a nice, wholesome girl to settle down with. And that was my mom's word. She'd
That'll
always,
fix me.
yeah, that'll do it. Not that any of the other girls I ever dated were, you know, other than wholesome, although maybe, but that's not for me. I mean, but I really thought that that would be it. And then I met my wife, and I was like, she won't, she won't let me be this way. So I'll, it'll work because I can't be like that around her. I can't be me the way I am now and have her too. And I knew that. And I've apologized to her for that. But that's when, I don't know if I'm sorry to her for doing that to her. I mean, she saved my life in a lot of ways because that's when my drinking got a whole lot worse. Because that was like the first time that I really recognized that like I wasn't going to be able to do this and have any kind of life that you get to the age where you start seeing other people take off in different directions, their jobs are taking off, and mine was pretty much staying the way it was. I mean, I was
They're getting married, they're having kids, or
yeah, they're doing
progressing
stuff
in their
and they're
careers,
not, and I'm starting to be a little bit older at the bar, and I'm not the cool guy anymore. I'm the drunk guy in the gutter. So I started to realize some serious things, and drinking at this point was not fun at all. It really wasn't fun. It was a burden, that something that I had to do, even though I worked hard to make it fun. But the harder that I worked to make it fun, the worse it always ended up, and the more depressed I got. All the lengths that I went to not feel that way I felt when I was in kindergarten just made everything worse. That's the truth. Everything that I did, and not even drugs or alcohol, but everything that I tried to do that wasn't this. This is the only thing that's ever worked.
right.
Everything that I ever tried to do just made it work worse. I thought that it, and I'm gonna get to the part where I get sober. But everything that I would try to do, and I always worked out a lot while I was even in all that madness of drinking, and I would kill myself in the gym, kind of like punishing myself to I did not want to be. I had an idea of who I wanted to be. I just couldn't get it. I couldn't get there. I couldn't do it, and I would punish myself into if I did this, then it's okay. I can go drink again, and it was almost kind of like, well, look, I got a job. I work out all the time. I'm good. I don't have, my life is good. I don't have any reason to stop. And that's when I met Teresa, and she really started to know. It was really difficult. It's almost kind of like, when you start to change your responsibilities, when you start to move some things around in your life a little bit out of your typical drinking routine, it's like your drinking just shows up way more, And whenever she whenever she started to notice that stuff, um, my drinking kept getting um, a lot worse, and I'd have to work a lot harder to hide it. And that's what I did. I lied more. And at this point, though, I couldn't last for very long, and I'd try to pull back and try to stay off the stuff. I'd try to stay clean for a little while. No, nothing. I'm not
When
gonna
you
do
say you couldn't
anything.
last very long, you meant like you wouldn't be able to, what, you hit the wall too quick
I
when you
couldn't
drank?
do I couldn't do anything for very long. I couldn't stay off of it for very long, and I couldn't stay on it for very long.
Okay.
And when I start drinking again, I'd be okay for 2, maybe 3 days, where I got this 1, 2 drinks, 3 drinks, I'm good. I'm gonna go on home, and then I'd have food at
Manage it
home,
for a few days, but
manage it for a few days, and then that fourth or fifth day, 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm knocking on the door at the liquor store, shaking, and I had to stay that way, for until I could actually quit. And I can't count how many times I would just come, crawling back to Teresa after she was just pissed because I hadn't been home or around, or she didn't know where I was, and I was doing God knows what, and I'd say, look, I'm done. I don't want to do this. And that was true. That was the first time I told the truth about my drinking. I didn't want to do that anymore because it was not fun. It hurt. It hurt my body. It hurt my emotionally more than anything because I had totally lost myself. That whole idea of the guy that I wanted to be, gone. It didn't.
gone.
That guy fucking
Yeah.
died a long time ago. It didn't matter. And that was we got married in 2014, and we started dating in 2011. And there were from 2011 to 2014 were little stints of sobriety. 3, maybe 4 months. I never put together more than probably 45. 45, and I never got 90 days. I don't think so. I never got more than 3 months, really. And I managed to convince her to marry me. And for a long time, I'd blame her. Well, you married an alcoholic. I'd say you married
Knew
him.
what you
You
were
knew
getting
what you were
into.
getting into. Yeah, you knew you were.
And I would bet on some level you probably was another one of those attempts at thinking that, well, if I got married, then that would probably, then I will be able to settle down. I'll be able to get a hand, manage this thing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Keep on making changes in our lives, hoping that that'll be the one that actually
Yep.
flips the switch, and I'll be okay.
And unfortunately, I think I feel for Teresa having known me as an alcoholic, and then knowing that that's probably what I did. I know she probably worried, was he really going to love me whenever he gets sober?
If
Um, it's been the case that I do, but that's the truth. Again, I mean, I was trying to do things to change myself,
Yeah.
and that without a I can't say without a program. I had a program, but just sticking with that one, it didn't work.
Yeah.
My old one, and 2014 we get. So I think I got drunk 2 weeks before the wedding. God, she was terrified to marry me.
She wouldn't make it
That
to the
I,
altar.
or she'd just end up marrying a drunk, a no good drunk, and that's what I was. I mean, I worked really hard not to portray that, but that's definitely not the she didn't see the guy with a nice job and nice clothes and put together and working out. She saw the sloppy guy coming home, peeing on himself and pissing in the corners and missing the bathroom completely. And just, I think I'll use the hallway instead. True story, real that really happened. She saw, broken dishes and plates flying through the house, smashed furniture and arguments, and we fought, physically fought. That's what she experienced, but she stayed, and I kept going. And I get sober, go to some meetings, think I'm gonna do this thing, and I'd go full force, but I never worked any steps, and I never got never got sober. And that's what it was like from 2014 until 2017. And there were tons of incidents, accidents.
Well, you and I met in a detox center in 2014 at some point.
Yep, that's where we met, 2014 at Wellstone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought surely I was going to get it. Yeah, I've heard you say
Yeah.
you thought I wasn't going to get it, and you surely were.
Yeah, and I was wrong on both accounts.
Yeah, and I thought I was definitely going to get it, and none of you guys were going to get it. I definitely got drunk again. And then, things kept getting worse. It's baffling to me how much worse and how quick things went downhill. It was like my morals I couldn't lower my morals fast enough to keep up with my disease and where it would take me. Because I'd always say, look, I would never do that. I'm never gonna get to that point. And then I would.
Yeah.
So I'd have to adjust it. Like, well, all right, this is where I am. That happened, but I'll never do that.
Yeah, like waking up in the gutter.
Like yeah. Well, it happened, but look, I won't do it again. It was just a one-time thing. I would definitely woke up in a gutter more than once. And 2014, 15, 16, and 17, I went to rehab. And at that point, I'd changed jobs again, went to a new place, and this particular employer had given me this one. I'd gone to rehab once. Went back to Wellstone after that. Did the same program that you and I met in. I did that again, and I stayed sober for a little while. And then I got drunk again, and then that one lasted a long time. That little bender was rough, and that hurt. And at the end of it, I could for the first time see clearly that I was definitely gonna die like that if I didn't change. I could see without a doubt in my mind. There was no doubt in my mind that if I kept on, I was just gonna die like that. And eventually, I don't think it would have lasted much longer. It may have lasted a lot longer, but I would have died that way somehow.
So let's talk about that bottom that actually got you to change and turn the corner. What was it that? Tell me about the days or weeks or whatever months that led up to the turning point. We say.
Well, after I remember it. Yeah, I remember how it starts. So I'd gone went through Wellstone again. Just my employer let me go. They sent me through there, and I did the program, finished it, and I stayed sober for a while. And my wife was going out of town, and I had, from my last one, held on to a bottle of wine that I just wanted to hold on to. I didn't want to get rid of it. And she was out of town, and the whole time I don't know how long I may have stayed sober for 5 months this time. And the whole time I knew that one bottle of wine was hidden in our house. And the first time she'd gone out of town, I had that conversation with myself that it would be okay to do it. So that first night she was gone, I did. And as soon as that one was done, I went to the liquor store and got another something. And that was it. I was done. And it went like that for a few months. That one lasted a while. And I'd gotten so bad, I wasn't even driving to work anymore. I'd, take an Uber to work. I'd made friends with the Uber driver. And I didn't come home. I spent the night in my car. I was passing out in my driveway, and then and at that point, my wife didn't even stop at that point. She didn't really care. She was just dead to it, done. And I was so sick at that point. It took me 6 or 7 beers. I remember going to Wick's Pizza one night, and I couldn't keep a beer down. I couldn't keep it down. I hadn't eaten anything, and I may have had some toast in a couple days, but I was just drinking, shit vodka
Yeah.
and and I'd smoke some pot in the mornings, try to like settle my stomach, and then drink a beer. Usually, if I drank a couple beers, I could switch to vodka and I could pound a pint and stop shaking. It's usually what I did. But this point, I couldn't get the beer down to get to the vodka, and I was like, I panicked. That was awful. And finally, I remember I got one beer down, got in the Uber, went down to this pizza place, this bar, and I ordered a Corona and a shot of whiskey or something, and I took a sip of the beer, and I had to go puke in the bathroom at this place. So I went outside. I puked some more. I got the beer down, and then I was like good for a while, and I stayed drunk like that for 2 or 3 days. And at one of those days, I had called you, and I was in the parking lot at the YMCA, and it was the middle of the day. I hadn't been to work. I was getting phone calls from my boss. He knew what was going on. It was pretty clear to me that I was going to lose my job. It was pretty clear to me that I was going to lose my wife, and she was going to take Ezra, my son, with her. So I was going to lose him. And I still couldn't quit. I could not stop. And I remember just being in my car, drinking that vodka, crying. And which is crazy that that's kind of like my real bottom, because I had looking back, I had a whole lot of other incidents that were worse than that, but this was it. And you called me. Is that how it went down? Did you call me?
I don't believe so. I had texted you about some opportunity to do something because I thought because of your fitness background, I knew you was a fit guy, and I was working on that recovery yoga thing.
You texted me
I
about
texted you
yoga.
about the yoga because I was looking for people who were in recovery because I
Yeah.
saw you around the meetings,
Yeah.
and was looking for some people that might be interested in doing that.
And I'd said something. You'd reached out, and I said maybe I said something like, "Oh, I'm not doing okay," and then.
Yeah. But you started calling me, and I
Yep.
remember specifically one of the first times you called me. I was actually up refinishing my deck. I don't know why I can remember that, but I remember I was upstairs refinishing my deck, and I saw your phone number pop up on my phone.
Yeah.
And you were a mess.
Yeah, I was a total mess. But
You was trying not to be, but you were
I was a total
trying
mess.
to sound like you weren't.
And I really couldn't stop, though. I mean, I really couldn't stop. There were times where I could, I'd get so sick, I could stop for a while, and I would do the whole detox at my house, and I'd have Teresa watch me, and I'd sit in there and sweat and writhe around in pain and knots in my stomach and puking, and then just not puking, just being fucking miserable and just in pain, like physical pain from all the withdrawals. And I would go through that, and I'd feel a little bit better, but as soon as I started to feel a little bit better, I would just get another drink. And I knew at that point I was fucked. Like, that was it. Terrified on so many accounts, because I knew that was it. That's what it was going to be. Also terrified that I wouldn't be able to drink anymore. Like, that still fucked me up. Still terrified me. That I could be in that type of pain, emotionally, mentally, physically, and I'm still sad that if I quit drinking, that means I can't drink anymore.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that shit?
Yeah, that's what when the poison becomes the cure,
Yep.
then you're in a real pickle.
Yeah, totally and utterly fucked.
So what'd you do then?
So I went to. You told me to go to rehab, and that was a.
You kept on calling me, asking me what you should do.
Yep, you told me to go to rehab. That was on a Friday.
I remember saying to you, I said, "Can you not drink tomorrow?" And you told me straight up, "No, I cannot not drink tomorrow.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I don't know." And I know that when that's the answer, the only solution I have for you is to go in a detox place and dry out.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the same position at times.
Yep. So you told me to go. I think it was a Friday or Saturday, and I didn't go. I went.
The insanity of going into the research into the detox joint on a Friday night.
Yeah,
That just doesn't make any sense at all.
There's no way. There was no way I was going to happen. Man, I even
So you had to drag your family through another weekend of misery and worrying
Yep.
about you. And I was on the phone with your mom, with your wife, and with your dad.
Yep, that was a fiasco. I'm glad I wasn't really conscious for that. So I ended up in the hospital on a Sunday night, and because they were just, I guess that they thought
They didn't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
They wouldn't do what I told them to do with you.
Yeah. So it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, I think, and I don't know what time it was. It was late on a Sunday night. Somebody let me in, and they gave me something, and I passed out. Woke up, and I'm in a fucking rehab joint. I didn't know. When I first woke up, I didn't really have a good idea where I was.
Oh.
Like logistically, I didn't know where the fuck I was. I mean, I knew I was in probably a rehab facility, but I didn't know where on the face of the planet it was. Like it could have been, in your hometown in Russia, and I wouldn't have known.
He's talking to our friend Vlad, who's sitting in here observing while we do this podcast.
Yeah, and I remember kind of coming to and walking outside of the room, and I've mentioned this before, but there was a woman, and she was gnawing on her shoe, in the hallway, chewing on her shoe, and there was this gigantic naked guy in the hallway, and he was just, he's really, harmless. He was just having a good conversation, it looked like, with himself, and but he had no clothes on, and they were kind of trying to wrestle him into a back room, and I thought, holy shit, I've done it. This is it. I am really fucked. So I laid back down, and it took me a few days to stop shaking and trembling, and it took me longer to be able to really talk and kind of come to terms with where I was. And then they asked me if I wanted to stay longer. But my plan was not to stay. My plan was to get the fuck out of there, go back to work. I had a lot of money I had to make. That was not part of my plan, staying. But I did. I stayed, I think, 28 days.
Yeah. Well, I remember a phone call from you, and you said, hey, they want me to stay for 28 days. What do you think I ought to do? And I remember where I was at, too, then, because I was out in the country down at our camp, and you'd called, and I was sitting at a little curb drive-in restaurant out there talking to you on telephone. I can still remember that, too.
Yeah.
And I remember what my answer is then, too. We should do what they are asking us to do. We should follow some directions, Chase.
Yeah. So that's what I did. I stayed, and that was...
I could hear you, though. You was like, that's not the answer I was looking for.
It wasn't. But I stayed, and it was the best decision that I ever made. I really do think that was one of the... I mean, that had to have been. Well, it worked, so...
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sober today. And
Stand at the turning point.
Yeah, so I stayed, and I got sober, but I still was definitely not better. I was just sober at that point. Because I remember... being in rehab, it's really, it's easy to be sober in rehab. When you're locked in somewhere, you're not locked, you could leave, but when you're, more or less locked in somewhere, you don't really have to worry about not drinking. You just,
Three squares,
you wake
bedtime,
up,
they tell you where to be, what time to be here, what time to be there. And
that's right, the 3 hots in a cot.
Yeah, there you go.
It's kind of nice. I didn't have to worry about a whole lot of stuff. It was just kind of like a little... shitty.
A lot better than jail.
It was like a shitty vacation, better than jail. I've never been in jail, which is crazy. But I've never been arrested, never been in jail.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, I don't know how. I never got pulled. I never had a DUI. I've been pulled over 3 times while drunk. Still didn't get a DUI. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess some people.
So you come out of rehab.
Yeah, came out of rehab, and I remember the first thought that I had was to get the fuck out of here. Like, I remembered that. I remembered thinking and having a plotted thought, a well detailed thought about how the ways in which I could get out of here, like how I could get home, get my basic essentials, get some money out of the account, and take my car and bolt without anybody knowing and go somewhere else and just be an alcoholic. It was a real thought. And after all that, going through even 28 days and the vowing to myself over and over again that I was, I'm really going to do this time. That is the first thought that hits me when I step one foot
freedom
out of one step into freedom, and my best thinking shows up and wants to talk about how we can go get drunk again. And that's when I knew I had to do something else. And I had never really worked any steps before. And so I'd called you, and we went to the Spiritual Underground. That was the first meeting I think I went to after I got out of rehab, and we started step work. And so that's what happened. And the way things are now, we have time to talk about that?
Yeah, we're going to take a little more time. We're at about 50 minutes, but we're going to, we can't stop. We did a lot of that. We did, walked up to there. Now we want to hear some more about the recovery. And I actually would like to take you back to a little bit of that, because I do recall some of it. And that's one thing that might be a little different with this interview than it might be with some others, is that I do have some intimate knowledge of of how this went down.
Yeah.
Because you did call me in rehab, and we would talk every few days, and you get your allotted phone calls here and there. And I know you also need to call your family, but you were still calling me throughout that too. And in the beginning, before you came, you had asked me to sponsor you, and some of that was yeah, I will do that, but you're going to have to follow some directions. And
Right.
like the first thing was getting into rehab and like to stay there when they recommended that. So when you come out, as Chase said, the Spiritual Underground was where I got sober. And so I knew that was like the very first place. And I can't remember. It almost feels like maybe you might have got out like on a Tuesday morning or something. I don't remember. It
Yeah.
wasn't very long, and we were bouncing into that meeting.
Yeah, it seems like I was there.
Yeah.
And I remember walking in, and
And we immediately started doing step work.
yeah,
We immediately started meeting up and
Started
beginning
meeting at your house.
in the book and started working through the
a
steps.
couple of times a week we were in the book.
Yep.
At least.
Yeah.
Doing step work. And
And I remember you had one particular problem that kept continuing to surface over
That fucking
and over and
Roomba.
over.
Is that what you're talking about?
The Roomba was one of them, but it always had the common denominator was the relationship.
Yeah. Well,
It was
that
always the
that's-
relationship, things that were always happening that were around what
That
was
was
going
the
on with
Roomba.
your
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Roomba was just a symptom of the relationship.
Yeah, and I was gonna get to that because it wasn't just like, oh, I got out of rehab, did a couple steps, and then bam, this shit's good. I thought we were gonna get a divorce possibly. Still, I was not sure if our relationship was gonna work, and I think she was pretty uncertain about it too. I think she was pretty uncertain and I know she'd even voiced to me that she wasn't sure if I would still love her, having been a sober person. And I think she might have known how different it was going to be for me more than I did.
Yeah. Plus, it was just one more bounce into the rehab joint. You'd done this before. What was going to be different about this time?
Yeah. I'm not so sure what was really different other than I had a very clear, like I could just see it clearly for the first time. I just knew this is what it was. This is the best my life is going to be right now. If I don't do anything differently, that sitting in a fucking Uber, making friends with the guy, and he's feeling sorry for me as he drops me off at another fucking bar. That was it. That was the best. Choking down 3 beers so I can choke down a pint so I can feel normal. That was as good as it was going to get for me. And it, all alone doing that, that was it. There was no doubt in my mind that that's what it was. So it wasn't really, yeah. Sorry.
We'll keep circling back to that. We want to
Yeah.
get you sober in this little speak here
We got
sometime too.
10 minutes.
No,
yeah.
we got time. There's not a time limit here
So-
at all.
The step work, when we I didn't have any clue at all what it would be like doing it. You were my 4th sponsor, but I'd never really done any work. Not that any of those guys did anything wrong. I just didn't do the work.
Right.
And we did the work, and things definitely started to change. So my relationship started to change, even though early on there was a lot of arguments about stupid shit like the Roomba not being cleaned out or just the petty, stupid shit that, simple things in life that you deal with when you're in a relationship were uh, still baffling, but they began to be less baffling as time went on and as I completed more of the step work. And to be honest with you, after I finished my fourth step and did a fifth step, we didn't have any problems with the Roomba anymore.
And that's interesting.
Yeah, that's a true story. And we began to fall in love with each other again, my wife and I.
Yeah, that's juice.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, that's been one of the coolest things, blessings, if you whatever you call it, whatever you want, that's happened to me in sobriety is that, um, I think you fall in love throughout your life multiple times. I mean, when I was drinking, I could fall in love in drop of a hat. If anybody complimented me, I was like thinking about how we might, what we can name our kids.
Yeah.
Because I needed to feel that, I needed that
That
attention.
affirmation. That.
But having gotten sober and being raw, and then being able to experience that raw self with, somebody who I already trusted was a blessing.
Yeah.
And then we got to fall in love with each other all over again, and we still continue to get to learn things about each other that we don't know. So I guess I'm lucky in that I don't have to, be all raw and all, new to this life alone, and I get to jump right into seeing what it's like with somebody else. I'm grateful for that, and I think my wife is too.
So you did that inventory, you did that fourth step, and then you
Yeah.
got to turn it all loose in your fifth step.
Started to do some amends, and that was all those experiences were, I don't know, it's hard to put a word on it. Life changing. What I want to say about making amends, though. I mean, the biggest amend that I made in my step work was to myself, I think. I just had a lot of guilt and a lot of all the shit, all the shame, all the bullshit that we go through. I had to say, dude, I'm sorry, man. Like after that, like I could talk to other people about it. Say, look, I was wrong. It was a lot easier for me to say I was wrong after I told myself that I was wrong, which sounds crazy. A little bit to me,
We don't have the power to forgive anybody, really. We have to get that power from elsewhere, and we say that first person that needs that forgiveness a lot of times is ourselves. We have
Yeah.
to forgive ourselves before we can go out doing forgiving others or asking other people to forgive us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, and then prayer and meditation started to take a big part of my life, and I've implemented that into my daily routine, which is hugely important today. I have a routine that I'm pretty adamant about staying on every day. And every morning I pray and I meditate, and that's not necessarily a religious prayer. It's more, for me personally, prayer and meditation is very much a focus of intentions and like letting it be known to my higher power where I am, where I want to go, and asking for help to get there. And I can, start a day. I like to, think about it as like you start a day with a higher power thought or a God, or people say start your day with a God thought, or whatever that means. I think that's the same, same thing. Just pointing myself in the right direction to do another right action. Because every time I take a step in that direction with right intentions and good, orderly direction, I don't have the doubts that I used to have. Without a program, like it was really easy for me to not implement any action. And then without that action, I had tons of doubt. And then with that doubt, it was really easy for me to start thinking about, well, maybe I can drink again. Maybe I really don't want to be sober. That's what the prayer and meditation did for me. It allowed me to just to be in a day, to wake up and have a day. That's what I had. So prayer and meditation took off in my life and allowed me to do other things. And now sponsoring guys, and that's been an amazing adventure. That's been a blessing. I'm working with 3 guys right now, and it's definitely taken my recovery. I won't even say sobriety. It's taken my recovery to another level of recovery. Um, well, like when I'm sponsoring people, when I'm sponsoring guys and working with the guys, I'm recovering.
Yeah, it's insurance. There's just
Yeah.
if I'm helping another guy get and come up out of that hole, I'm just not gonna think drinking is not on the menu.
Nope.
Especially you got these guys who are dependent on you.
Yeah.
They're looking at you for guidance.
Yep.
That's stuff that keeps me on the right side of the plane. And then it's also that whole thing about having to give this thing away to keep it. I have to do that.
And I've told you multiple times after, something real juicy will happen with a sponsee, and I'll call you and I'll just be like, dude, there's no fucking way I'm drinking today.
Yeah.
Like it's not even an option. Until afterwards I'm like, yeah, there's no way. I'm not doing that. This is great. And
You told me a story one time about like a on the spot amend kind of thing that happened with a cleaning lady at the work.
yeah.
So I'm gonna tease you on a couple little stories I want you to tell, and because I think it's important to talk about the the miracles, the juice, and the things that happen now that we're sober. And I mean, if you keep I was always like you've heard me say, I was always encouraged to keep a list of these things. I actually have a physical list of these miracles that I've kept track of because I never kept track of all the stuff before. But now in recovery, I'm actually keeping track of the things that happened in my life so that I can recall them and have bullet points. So that go ahead with that little story.
So I used to at my office. My wife is a teacher, so she would leave early in the morning to go to work, and it allowed me to just go to the liquor store, come back home, and drink until I know she got class got out at 2:30. So I had to get my shit together, take a shower, clean up, kind of sober up for a second to get back to the office, to pretend like I was on meetings all day and working hard and being a big shot. And I'd get to the office about 3 or 4 and basically sit there and look like I was busy to the people at the office. It was a front for everybody. And I'd have a coffee cup or some Gatorade bottle or something that was full of vodka. And I would sit at my desk and drink until 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Working late, buddy. I'm
my wife,
I'm all in here.
I'm working hard, babe. Making this. We're gonna be great. Don't worry. I got some big stuff coming. I would just be sitting there watching stupid shit on my phone, and fucking getting drunk. And the cleaning lady would always come in, and I don't remember her name. But she'd always come in, and I could tell that she thought something was wrong. I could tell that she, knew something's off with this dude. And one night in particular, I was just fucking wasted. And she asked me if I was okay, and I knew at this point, she's like, I'm damn near cross-eyed. She's like, okay, I can't hide this one. So I told her, and she asked me if is that what you're doing here? Kind of thing when you're here late. And I was like, yeah, pretty much. I'm just, drinking. She said, why do you do that? And there's a bit of a language barrier. She was Hispanic. And I talked to her about it. I don't know why, but I just told her stuff. I guess I just needed somebody to talk to. And I get, she never really bugged me about it. She never said, told me not to do it. She just talked to me. And after I'd gotten sober and come back to work, I'd taken a lot of time off to recover and get, go through rehab. And it took another, 30 days or so to get my life together before I stepped back in the office. And it wasn't until maybe when I told you this, it was a month ago, 2 months ago. Yeah. It'd been a long time since I had seen her. And I was actually working late one night because I really did have a lot of stuff going on. Good stuff. For the first time I was really working. And working on an account, and she shows up. And she comes up and, she's like, oh, working late again, you know. And I was like, actually, I am working late, and I was like, I'm not drinking. And she, was like, seemed really proud of me for that, and I was like proud that she was proud. It made me feel
right.
good, like I wanted her to know, like, and it was kind of like an unspoken thing that like she needed to know that she helped me.
Yeah, she's like an angel, man.
Yeah, and it's funny, man. I saw her the other day, and she's actually taking her licensing test to sell insurance. She
Oh,
wants
really?
to do, yeah, like what?
Wow, how about that?
Yeah, and I told her if she needed help with anything, I'll be happy to.
Yeah,
Because I don't think she, like, people that show up in our lives like that, I don't think they really, or maybe they do, but I don't think they really realize the gravity or the impact that they really have on
yeah.
us. Because, like, I'll never forget. I could, like, honestly couldn't tell you her name, but I will never forget that woman.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And that night, and
Yep.
yeah, and the polar opposites of the two episodes of you're just probably shocked looking at her cross-eyed, drunker in hell, wishing that you really didn't want to see her. Probably don't want to see any
Didn't
human
see
being in
anybody.
those kind of spots, and then later on, actually have an opportunity in her time when it was like you're a new man, and she actually could see that and sense that.
Yep.
And that little bit of a bonding kind of thing that will happen when like you like cool.
And
Somebody
it wasn't
has
like
turned the page and they're better now.
I wasn't bragging like,
Right,
"Hey, I'm
no,
sober."
of course.
It was almost like by me telling her that I was sober honestly it was just like saying thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got some other things. I know there's a few because I do like to point out and knock on some. And I don't remember all of them. I do remember you telling me about and I'll just hit on a couple of them just to spur it. And we don't need to get into big long stories on it, but talk about some other things that had specific impact on you that you'd share with me, like the camping trip that you all went on in was it in Georgia
Mm-hmm.
as a family,
Yeah.
and was able to take your son and wife down there, and she loves the outdoors, and that was a very special place to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's been a lot of you mentioned my son, and for the first 3 months of his life, I was in the midst of my last bender. That was
Yeah.
shortly after. Honestly, I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It's a painful thing for me, and I probably didn't bring it up just because I don't like to think about the fact that the whole time she was delivering Ezra, I was drunk, and I need to say that though. That definitely happened.
Right.
I was drinking the whole time, and I'd always told her that once we had Ezra, that I wouldn't do that anymore.
Another one of these life events. Once I get to there,
Yeah.
I will stop.
But and I didn't bring it up. Maybe kind of on purpose. It's like it's just hard to talk about.
Right.
I don't. I hate that. I hate that I did that. I hate that I lost those 3 months. The first 3 months of his life, I was absent. Even when I was there, I was not there. And she knew it. My parents knew it. Everybody knew it. I was not a dad. I was a guy with a kid.
Sperm donor.
Yep, that's what it was. And I worked these steps, and then these steps, took a guy with a kid, and I get choked up saying this. I've said it before, man.
Yeah.
Took a guy with a kid, and turned him into a father.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just it blows my mind. And I get to do stuff like take my wife camping in Georgia. It's this place that she loves to go, and I don't like camping, really. I don't fucking. It's like I don't know. It sucks, but you do this work, and things like camping are really a breeze for somebody who hates camping. Like I can hate camping. Like this, the power of the 12 steps, or I can hate something, and do it anyway, and have fun. Honestly, I look back and knowing that I really hate camping like that, and I also had fun, which is weird. I get to do that kind of stuff, and spend time with my wife and my son. We get to raise them together now.
Yeah.
He gets to have a
son-in-law.
mom and a dad, and
You
like,
walk in this path, he'll never have to see his dad drink. He will never know that was a part of your history unless at some point you tell him.
yeah, man.
My kids are not the same. Don't follow the same suit. They know who their dad was at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to do that, and I've heard some cool stories about that. I was and you vacation in Mexico.
So my wife has been talking about getting scuba certified since I've known her, and I had every intention of doing that, and it was always one of those things I really wanted to do. I've always wanted to travel all over the place, and I had, all these ideas about going to all kinds of places. I could never make them. It's kind of like the same thing. I always wanted to have a fully stocked bar, and every time I tried, it just was empty.
Yeah,
all
just
the
had
time.
empty bottles.
Yeah, empty bottles. And I wanted to go all these places and have all these experiences, but every time I tried to, I ended up empty. Couldn't do it. But we went and got scuba certified in Cozumel, and we were able to comfortably do that. If we afforded it.
Took Ezra, took your mom.
Took Ezra, took my mom, and we both got scuba certified. We are certified open water divers now, and that's like, that's not a huge deal, but that's a big fucking
That's a
deal.
huge deal.
Like, I did something for the first, like, I mean, that's, for the first, this is the first time in my life where I'm doing things, and I've done other stuff before, but.
But to do it with a clear head and a purpose, and to know that your conscience is not. I mean, you would not have got open water certified under the conditions when you was drunk. It's not going to happen.
I wouldn't have left
The shore.
I wouldn't have left New Albany, Indiana, to walk away from a bar for a weekend.
Right.
I couldn't get away from it.
So now your career's taking off and getting traction again.
He's doing really well.
You have more plans for travel.
Yep. We're going to Athens in November.
Yeah.
So we get to go on a trip to Athens, Greece in November, and we're going to Italy in the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that stuff
crazy.
don't happen when
No.
this is dream stuff, and it shows what recovery actually does, and it's not the thing I've learned. You think this stuff is like some kind of anomaly, but it's not. You hear people, and maybe not everybody's doing that traveling, but everybody's got their dream that goes on. My dream's not the same as yours, but it's coming to fruition too, and I get to do a lot of things that are lifelong dreams of my own, and you see that in everybody who's in recovery. And it's one point that I definitely want to, like, when I get people on their side of this and telling their stories, and I think it's something that falls short a little bit when we're doing it on a podium in a setting a lot of us do, is that first off, we only have the 1 hour, and here we are at 1:15, and we still kind of was brief about things. We didn't go into the depth we could have. And we forget, like, if having somebody help you remember to get into talking about these things that are the miracles and the real joy, because that's what it's really all about. All that drunken stories is one thing, right?
Yep.
What really is the promise that we have here in life is all the miracles that are laying out and waiting for us to go out and do this thing called life with a purpose and have a life worth living.
Yeah, that's it. And I don't do what I do today. I don't do this work. I don't do this. I don't do the recovery the way I do it. And I know you don't do it this way either, because you want to be sober. We don't do this because we want to not drink. Not doing things is not even part of my vocabulary. I remove things so I don't have to think about not doing them anymore.
Right.
And I have a program and I have tools to be able to do things instead of not do something else that I don't want to do. The things that I don't like anymore, the toxic things in my life, are not part of something I think about anymore.
Yeah.
I think about what I want to do. I think about what I can do for other people, and I think about how great this fucking thing's going to be. I don't show up here to do this because I don't want to drink today. I do this because I'm fucking thriving and I want to keep on doing it. I'm addicted to this Like I'm still an addict. I'm still a fucking alcoholic. This is just my new drug. And I heard that early on too from other people who weren't alcoholic, maybe that AA was just or the 12 steps were just a substitute, and they definitely fucking are. Like the 12 steps are a fucking substitute. It's a sufficient substitute, and that's what I needed. I needed a sufficient substitute. Otherwise, I was gonna die. And I'm not even certain to call it a sufficient substitute justifies it because it's more than that. The life that I have isn't just again me not dying because of the other one. I didn't. This program didn't save my life. It gave me a new one entirely. That's the miracle that I have experienced by doing the 12 steps.
But it not only saved my life, but it also gave me a brand new one.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And I'm just gonna keep on rolling, man.
Man, it's a blast. That's what one thing I do like to close with. And when I talk, if I get a chance to say it, one thing I've done tonight. It's been fun doing it because it gives me a chance to participate in my recovery.
Yep.
That's another thing. Somebody told me that participation in my recovery was not an option. We get to sit here and do this, and also the fact of the matter is I'm having a blast in recovery. I really am. I'm having more fun than a guy deserves to have, but I deserve every minute of it.
I agree.
And I see it in your life too, and you've been a blessing in my life, and we get to walk this thing together, and it's been cool sitting in front of the mics. And
another thing too, man, since you're my sponsor and we're sitting here and we mentioned sponsorship either, man.
I was going to ask you for a closing thought.
This is my closing thought. Sponsorship is the one thing that we could sit here for an hour and a half and talk about that alone.
We could
easily, but
we will at another time.
You and I have, we started off with this sponsor-sponsee relationship, but I might be forward by saying this, but I feel like we're a whole lot more than
I agree,
more
100%.
than that. In doing this work, you get so much. You get a friend, you get a family, and it's more than just take me through this, show me how to live.
Yeah, man.
It's this is how we're gonna live.
It's about building relationships. It's about re-entering society and getting close to people and becoming vulnerable with your buddies and being able to say stuff about when we're hurting or sharing our victories and sharing our pain and doing this thing called life together.
Exactly. And
you look like 12 steps. 12 steps what bring these human beings together.
Yeah, that's what it's all about for me. And I remember when I first started, maybe midway through the steps, and I'd say, man, I have to go do this thing. I think the first time you mentioned that to me, we went to a basketball game. I said, hey, I got to go give this basketball out at halftime. And you said, you get to go do that. And I feel like that's what, this whole thing is, and sponsorship just carries that forward. We get to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a blessing. If I had to do it, and that was what drinking was, I had to do that. I get to do this.
Right.
That's all I got. My name's Chase, and I'm happy as fuck to be here.